Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is sitting comfortably. Happy to see many of you here. So, a very warm welcome to this political workshop, Navigating Polarized Narratives, Understanding Regional Food System in the EU. Whenever we talk about sustainable food system transformation, we often talk about the challenges of rural areas, but very rarely we focus on the narratives and how these different narratives play a role in the transformation of the food system. This is why today, Reimagine Europa, the Committee of Regions with the NAT Committee, the European Food Forum, ICLE, and the Novo Nordisk Foundation are joining forces to celebrate the European Week of Region, as well as to contribute to cohesion policy and try to create a platform, a multi-stakeholder platform on how we can work together towards the sustainable food transformation. My name is Maria Teresa Buco. I'm a public affairs manager at the Novo Nordisk Foundation, and I'm happy to be your moderator for today. I will give the first floor to Piotr Załbecki. I hope I pronounce it correctly.
Very good pronunciation.
Thanks a lot from the Committee of Regions. So please, Piotr, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me. I am dedicated to welcome you today on behalf of NAT Commission, of the European Committee of the Regions, whose member I am. It's very important for me that food security and the regional food systems are discussed during the European Week of Regions and Cities, and thank you for choosing this panel. Today's topic is close to my heart, as I am also represent over a big Polish agricultural region of Kujawsko-Pomorskie. It's located in the central part of Poland, north part, central Poland. Home to more than 2 million inhabitants, it's one of the Polish most productive agricultural regions. Most recently, in June this year, on its own initiative, the European Committee of the Regions adopted an important opinion on the future of common agricultural policy. I had the honor, but also great responsibility to be the co-reporter of this opinion. We highlight condition of farms and developing rural areas. This opinion was prepared and discussed in the middle of the farmers' protest in Europe, and was and still is a part of broader political debate, not only between the European Commission and farmers, but also national governments, with the future of CAP and the European Green Deal on the table. It was maybe not easy in the beginning for me to meet with 200 disparate farmers who suddenly faced 775% loss of income of wheat. It was the day after Russian aggression on Ukraine, where the border was open. But dialogue is necessary to solve problems. Finally, we find agreement. In recent years, we have observed a strong trend of the decline of unprofitability of small and family farms, as well as the deteriorating quality of the life in rural areas and the accelerated depopulation of rural regions. That is fact. Every day we lost 2, 5 or 10 farms in Europe. Every day. These trends have especially accelerated during last crisis, such as the pandemic, Russia's aggression against Ukraine, as we said, and the disasters results from climate change. That is very often, for example, in my country, this summer we have catastrophe and also rural areas lost many profits. All this proves that the current system is not resistant to threats. It is necessary to strengthen the common agriculture policy by increasing its budget. And as we know, there are more opposing voices among politicians. That is crazy. Therefore, we propose not to reduce funds for common agriculture policy, but increase the budget. And what is, I think, interesting for this discussion, basic its spending on regional food security strategies. We know that the CAP is still very centralized, steering with the EU institutions and ending at the national level. The participation of regional and local authorities is minimal. It is limited, for example, to a small component of the second pillar, which is related to rural infrastructure development. It's not enough. This is why we propose a deeper discussion at the EU regions forum to diverse in terms of agriculture resources, to create programs for regional food security systems based on local production, maintaining endogeneity, shortening the supply chain, reducing environmental impact, and increasing quality and quantity guarantees in terms of health. This model should also take into account minimum level of profitability, income for agriculture activities. Therefore, a deeper dialogue is needed, and the involvement of various stakeholders in the development of regional food security platforms, including farmers, consumers, environmentalizations, the scientists, community, local authorities, and above all, non-governmental organizations, of course. I fully agree with the creation of regional multi-stakeholders platform designed to catalyze cooperation in transition local food system toward sustainability. We should no longer pursue a policy of building walls between those communities, because we all have one goal: to maintain good, healthy, safe and self-sufficient agriculture. Thank you for this panel. I will participate in the ongoing discussion and monitor the progress in creating the platforms. Given that Poland is taking over the presidency of the Council and food security is one of its priorities, we must and will continue the discussion so that after 7 years of new budget in 2034, we will be talking about success, not problems. Thank you very much for your attention. And once again, I wish you interesting and fruitful discussion.
Thanks a lot, Piotr. You touch upon a lot of interesting and very timely relevant topics. I'm sure we're going to discuss this again later, but you will stay with us with the panel. Before passing the floor to our first panelist here, I would just like to give some instructions. So this event is web streamed, so welcome also to the colleagues and the friends following us online. There will be a recording of the session just after the event. We want to have an interactive discussion, so feel free to raise your hands and make your voice heard. I will also ask the audience whether there are any questions. And if you want to spam us around your social media channels, please don't hesitate to do so. Use the hashtag #EURegionsWeek, which is the official hashtag of the European Week of Regions, as well as hashtag #EUFoodDialogue. So before kicking off, perhaps I see some of you with your phone in your hands. Should we do the test now? Do you want to do it later? We do it later? Okay. But then we have the first keynote, actually, from the current Hungarian presidency of the Council. She's Beata Olga Felkai. She's Deputy State Secretary of Food Industry and Trade Policy at the Hungarian Ministry of Agriculture, and she sent us a keynote video. We have it ready, right?
Kedves részt. Szeretettel köszöntök minden kedves résztvevőt a magyar elnökség nevében. Külön szeretném köszönteni a konferencia szervezőit. Úgy gondolom, hogy nagyon fontos, hogy egy ilyen témát tűztek az asztalukra, úgyhogy nagyon hálásak vagyunk nekik ezért. Az elmúlt időszakok elsősorban a Covid-tól kezdődő időszak volt az, ami rávilágított arra, hogy mennyire fontos a működő élelmiszerrendszereknek a szerepe az életünkben. Az élelmiszerbiztonság mellett az élelmezés biztonságnak is kiemelt szerepe van. Amit ebben a témában Magyarország tekintetében nagyon fontosnak tartottunk, azok például a rövid ellátási láncok fokozott működtetése és üzemeltetése. Ugye nagyon fontos számunkra az, hogy a vidéki életvédelme működjön, hogy az ottaniak olyan komfortosan tudjanak élni és termelni, ami mindenki számára kedvező. Nagyon fontosnak tartjuk azt is, hogy a hagyományos élelmiszerek ugyanúgy megmaradjanak az életünkbe, és mindenki számára elérhetőek legyenek. Központi akarat az, hiszen az Unióban is ez a cél, hogy minden állampolgár biztonságos, jó minőségű élelmiszerhez tudjon hozzájutni. Ez a minőség pedig nem lehet kettős, mindenki számára megfelelőnek kell lennie. Az elmúlt években éppen ezért az iparral, a különböző szereplőkkel együttműködve folyamatos párbeszéd mentén ehhez kapcsolódóan például útmutatókat dolgoztunk ki, így bízunk benne, hogy ezt a célt mi is könnyen tudjuk teljesíteni. Szeretném felhívni a figyelmet ennek az együttműködésnek a fontosságára, illetve nagyon szeretnénk elérni azt, hogy minden olyan ehhez kapcsolódó fontos témában, mind a tagállamok között, mind pedig a különböző érintett szereplők között meglegyen a fokozott együttműködés és a folyamatos szakmai kommunikáció. Köszönöm szépen, hogy meghallgattak, és mindenkinek nagyon jó és eredményes tanácskozást kívánok.
Is it working? Yes, great. You stopped earlier, but I think we got the message, right? So, going back to this exercise, everybody has a smartphone, so please scan the QR code that you can see on the screen. We will encourage and invite you to reply to this question. They're gonna run for the whole event, and we are gonna see the response at the end of the event, so just like a small surprise to keep you warm. And without any further ado, perhaps I will introduce our second panelist here today. So I'm happy to give the floor to Madame Irène Toléré. You are a known face for many of us in Brussels, also wearing different hats at the moment, right? So you've been co-founder and former chair of the European Food Forum. Yes. You are now acting as an interim. You have been an MEP, very strongly active in the Agri Committee. We all know about this. And you are currently president of the Leader France, the French National Federation of Rural Territories and Local Action. I hope I got the translation from French and English correctly. But yes, Irene, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen and esteemed colleagues, honored guests, For me, it's really a privilege to stand before you today at this important event, Navigating Polarized Narratives, Understanding Regional Food System in the EU. We have to face a backdrop of unprecedented challenges, from the impacts of climate change and the escalating inflation to the ripple effects of all the geopolitical tensions that we talked about. These issues are shaping not just our economies, but our communities, our societies, and crucially, our food system. Yesterday, I was in Paris, and the urban area of Paris is going to have 1 million more people living there in the next 10 years. That means that the place where we buy food for Paris, we need to have 400,000 new tons of food to feed the new inhabitants. So all the things that we are shaping, the societal changes, the economic, the climate change, have a direct impact on our food system, what we eat, and everything. So, as the co-founder and former chair of the European Food Forum, I have really witnessed firsthand the significance of our discussions today. We are at a turning point. The polarization surrounding our food system reflects deeper social and political divides that influence every part of our lives. It's not just about what we grow, how we grow it, or where it goes. It's about who we are as a society and what we value. In rural areas across Europe, the narrative surrounding food production and distribution often mirror generational, economic, and ideological divides that can tear at the very fabric of our communities. I always say that in the word agriculture, you have the word culture. And our food systems are part about who we are and how we live and all the social rights we have to build a human and social community. These divides can foster insular thinking and can link to fragmentation, making it challenging to build the collaborative solutions we so desperately need. The south of Europe, the drought, the other places, big floods, and in all the communities, then we need to build the common ground with local diversity. So as we delve deeper in these complicated dynamics today, we must bear in mind that polarization can cloud our vision, obscuring the common goals we share. The insights gleaned from the Committee of the Regions study on rural-urban voting patterns and Eurosceptic sentiments provide us with a framework to understand these complexities. They reveal to us not only the contrasting perspective that exists across our member states, but also the underlying fear and hopes driving these narratives. We must take time to listen to farmers, to listen to consumers, small producers, large corporations, to those from urban centres and those from rural landscape. Every voice carries a piece of the larger puzzle. As we dissect the polarization surrounding agricultural practices, including debates on food sovereignty and access to resources, let us focus on the pivotal objective that arises from our exploration today, the establishment of multi-stakeholder forums at local and regional levels, similar to what we have fostered through the European Food Forum. This platform can serve as a powerful antidote to the fragmentation we see today by bringing together diverse stakeholders, local farmers, community leaders, consumers, industry representatives, policy makers. These forums can facilitate inclusive dialogues and bridge divides and foster understanding. They create an environment where every voice is heard, where local actors can collaborate to identify shared goals, and where solutions can be co-created, grounded in the realities of each community in all its diversity. Such a collaborative approach not only combats the polarization inherent with food system discussion, but it also engenders a sense of ownership and commitment among local actors. When people feel that their opinions and experience matter, they are more likely to engage meaningfully in the process. This inclusiveness drives innovation and creates solutions that are reflective of the community's unique needs, solutions that will not only address immediate challenges, but also lay the groundwork for a sustainable future. As we move forward, let's commit to building these multi-stakeholder forums at local and regional levels, places where dialogue is encouraged, diverse perspectives are valued, and collaboration is the norm. Through this collective effort, we can transform polarized narratives into shared initiatives, ensuring that our food system not only survive, but thrive in the face of change. Thank you for your commitment and your passion. I look forward to working alongside all of you as we embark on this important journey together. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Irene. Again, a lot to elaborate on. But we move on. We have here with us another excellent speaker, Marcin Napiórkowski. I'm really practicing my Polish today. Associate Professor at the University of Warsaw, Contemporary Mythology Scholar in Reimagine Europa. Marcin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, just 4 very short points to kick off the discussion. So first, social reactions to new technologies, but also to new policies or regulations are never direct. What people do and feel and think is always mediated by some collective imagination, by narrative stories we share, by images we've seen, even by the movies. We know and cherish Jurassic Park is popping up every time we mention new genome editing technologies or GMO. So, number 2, unfortunately, recent farmers' protests, also in Poland, give us a very good example how lack of good, clear communication can backfire. I had an opportunity to meet some of the protesting farmers, and I've heard a lot of very disturbing stories. I've heard a dairy farmer who was sure that there is an influx of Ukrainian milk destroying Polish agriculture. Actually, the opposite is true. I've heard a grain farmer who was convinced that because of the new laws for the furloughing, he will only be able to plant anything on his ground only every 2nd year, which is definitely not true. But except for these details, what they wanted to share were general stories, basically stories about us and them, some of them who are trying to intervene with the everyday agricultural job. And there were 3 distinct characteristics that repeated every time in these stories. First, the change is very rapid. Somebody's taking our tradition, our values, our normal life, and replacing it with something entirely different. Second, lack of agency. We, the farmers, had nothing to do with that. We cannot control the situation. We feel insecure and manipulated from Warsaw or Brussels. And number 3, we, the farmers, are bearing the costs while someone else is taking the gains. I only spent a few hours during the farmers' protest because it was a short and very dramatic event, but we already knew these stories because at Reimagine Europa we were doing research on narratives on food systems and also on climate change for many years, and these are the stories that are repeating again and again, not only in Poland, in Spain, in France, in every country you have monitored. So point number 3, this means that polarization becomes a main factor now mediating collective reactions. When people see a new law, when they see a new regulation, when they see a new technology, they ask, is it ours or theirs? And this is a tricky thing, because when I work with experts, when I work with climatologists who spend their life convincing people that climate change is real, when I work with biotechnology people who know a lot about GMOs, they say polarization is very good, because it is us or them, people who are right and people who are wrong. No, the polarization is never good, because the more we care about climate change, the more we should believe that there should not be gap, but bridges between us and them to help convince people what is good. This means, and this brings me to my fourth and final point, that the main challenge that we are facing is not only to create great new technologies that we really need in agriculture and great new regulations and laws to continue what was known as European Green Deal or Farm to Fork strategy, but we also need to think about the language and imagery, to reinvent the narratives that surround the food system and necessary transformation right now. And when we think about narratives, unfortunately, the first thing we think about is usually talking, speaking. Let's make a better narrative. Let's convince everybody. Let's make a better story. My proposition would be to start the other way around, to use narratives as a very powerful tool of listening, to start with really listening carefully what people who are now rejecting European Green Deal are saying, what are their stories, and how can we build both new policies and new narratives to be much more inclusive and familiar for these people. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Martin. We go now to Anna Brun. She's a senior expert in biodiversity and nature-based solutions and sustainable food system at ICLE European Secretariat. Please, Anna.
Yes. This one, thank you. Let's say thank you one more time. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here with you all, and I appreciate where some of this narrative is already going related to the right to food and how food is really for everyone, and we have to look at this from that perspective. So some questions come to my mind when we think about how can we ensure that policies, programs, partnerships, and activities and initiatives that we develop really do benefit everyone? Can we? Can we accept that some organizations or people may have to share some power and resources with others? So we look at this quite a bit in our food systems work at ICLE from the perspective of where are the co-benefits from working across sectors and working with different stakeholders, and where are the trade-offs, and what can we do to maximize the benefit for all and minimize the losses that might happen as well. We work on this from the perspective of co-creation and inclusive or co-governance. And we continue to learn the important value of investing time in relationships, in iterative processes, in continuous learning, and in transparency. And I think some themes have already come up from some of the other panelists. So we're a sustainable cities network at ICLE with over 22 offices worldwide. I work with the European Secretariat. We work with over 180 of our active members in Europe, but we have a network of over 2,500. In over 35 countries. So we have a lot of touch points for this work, and we coordinate the Global City Food Program, which brings together our regional offices around the globe to work on these topics of food systems transformation. And we do this from the perspective of healthier people, healthier landscapes, and a healthier planet. And we hear this word co-creation a lot in our work. I'm not sure about everybody else's. And I think it has something to offer to this conversation about polarized narratives, because it's about recognizing that valuable knowledge and expertise exist beyond the boundaries of any one entity or any one group. And if you involve and bring together diverse perspectives, then you have a more grounded but still innovative and really user-centric solution, we could say, right? It comes from business, so we can talk about what's a user in a food system. We all are participants, perhaps, doing this together. In one of our projects, Food Paths, we are working with 17 partners and 19 networks to develop the prototype governance model for the Future Foods Partnership, which many of you, I'm sure, know about, that launched this June. That will includes research organizations and member state representatives, and it will co-fund with the EU Commission, eventually with a budget of over 175 million euros, food systems projects that will change the way we eat, change the way we process and supply food, change the way we connect with food systems, and change the way we govern food systems. That's a lot of change. And I was in Aalborg in Denmark last week at the Sustainable Cities and Towns Conference, and there was a conversation on stage between the deputy mayors of Mannheim in Germany and the mayor of Tirana in Albania. They were discussing and sharing how people want to see fast action. They want to see fast change. But the resulting transformation can be uncomfortable. It's not really maybe what they thought it was going to be, or it's uncomfortable. So they want change, but this transformation can be uncomfortable. So to really make changes with this multi-actor cooperation, it's really necessary so that people feel part of it. They're not feeling isolated or alone. They're part of the transformation that's happening and not left out of it. This work is interdisciplinary, it's cross-sectoral, and what we're hearing from the work that we're doing in some of these projects, were lots of interviews, lots of touch points, right? We really need a common ground for specific projects, so people are working together on something specific, that we have a shared vision for what we're talking about, where we're moving towards together in this transformation, and add more transparency into this process. And we hear this from Barcelona to Wrocław to Thessaloniki. We hear this from around Europe and around the globe, that these are core to the work that we're doing. And I think food is a great place for this starting point for sustainability and sustainable development, or what angle we come at it from, because the metaphor that we so often use, right, is who is at the table, or come to the table. Who's coming to the table? And that stems directly from food. It's the connector of so many of these sectors, from culture to climate to health to disaster preparedness. And it really has the opportunity to bring together the multi-stakeholder actors that we need for the transformation that everybody recognizes is coming and is important. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anna. It's interesting how all of you are actually saying the same things by using different words and different phrases. I guess Martin can create some narratives here and there, right? But perhaps let's have some discussion right now. And Piotr, I'm going to bring you back into the discussion. In your opening introduction, you talked about the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policies, as well as the European Green Deal, and how much the farmers are now feeling this burden on the shoulders for the EU ambitious goals and on the green transition. But let me perhaps start with a necessary question. Do you think that the lack of definition on sustainability and the complexity around it can actually play a role in creating divergences across stakeholders?
For sure, yes, it needed the definition about what is this. Finally, sustainability. As we know, in Commission there is a document which is not shown, but I think for next period of Commission we will discuss about this proposal, and I hope it will be accepted by the European Parliament, also by Committee of the Regions, because there are many differences about the definition. What is, in fact, sustainability? If we look for agriculture, we know that agriculture is very different in Europe. We have different agriculture systems and productions and food system, distribution, culture. On the south of Europe is different in France, in Poland, and is different in the north of Europe. We have big farms and small farms. Each one needs different definition, because in my opinion, sustainability is definition about what is good for ecologic aspect of our life, but also what is good for us, for people, because it's impossible to develop without use of nature to develop. So we have to find the balance and try to find a definition for region, not general for Europe because it's impossible, in my opinion. If we talk with the big farmers, if we talk about food security, not quality, security, to have a quantity, it's impossible to give the opportunities for and chance for citizens of Europe to be independent about the food, because we need a lot of tons. You said about how many Paris need every day, tons. That is impossible to do it by ecologic, in the general opinion, farms. But of course, we have to minimize chemical, everything what is bad for health and for ecology, for nature. But it's a process. So we need everywhere dialogue between the actors, and in the center of the table have to sit every time science, the knowledge, definition. That is what is true in our point of view, and now in our the level of knowledge of scientists.
Thanks, Bernd. It's really interesting, and indeed it's good that we are now focusing on the local, because, Irene, I'm coming to you. So you know also from your role as a former MEP, we often, especially here in this town, we often talk about the targets, objectives, but we probably rarely talk about the challenges. So from your perspective, where do you see the challenges at local level in the food system transformation? And if you can give us some examples as well.
Thank you very much for this question. Now that I'm not anymore a member of the European Parliament, I tend to say that we have a certain tendency to oversell and under-deliver. With the, we talk to everybody about what we put on the EU for REACT-EU, things like that, to develop the economy, but then after you have paperwork, and in fact we under-deliver. And that's a big crisis of confidence for all the citizens in national politics or European politics. Because if on TV, social media, you hear that you are going to get so many billions to develop so many jobs, well, if 2 years afterwards you have not seen anything change near you, then you don't believe in it anymore. So it's very important that we give the power back to the local communities. Why do I say that? Because it works. We have the leader works like that. A leader, we feasted more than 30 years of a leader program. So it's a European policy with European and national fundings that is governed and designed at local level. And what does it mean? It means that all the stakeholders are around the table and they can prevent things that do not help us reach the objective, which I will call, being French and from the South, what we call technocratic stupidities. So you build a regulation that is supposed to work, and of course, in your local community, you have a little something that doesn't make it. And if you have all the stakeholders, the policy makers, the mayors, all the people that can produce, then you can find the best solution at the local level. I will come back to the concrete example of Paris. 400,000 tons more of food. Do we build new roads? Do we have bigger trucks? The decision that was done was to build north of Paris another place so that we do not create new traffic jams, because at the moment, sorry, the food is delivered by truck, and then afterwards you can have a smaller transportation. So it's very important that we think local. The food system also, we have our traditions. We have also our demographics that are not the same. In some places you have more population, in some places you have less population. You have places where we have the drought and that are used to eat tomatoes, but then if you don't have water, you don't have any more tomatoes. So for instance, with LEADER, we wanted to have, in all our schools, in our community, we wanted to have good local food for our children and not put to ruin all the cities. So we worked with all the stakeholders to see what were the things, and we had the farmers, but we didn't have the people to transform, because vegetables, they do not jump from the field direct to the a plate without a transformation. And so, as we have in our place a high unemployment rate on some young guys that do not have enough diplomas, we built a specific company to help them learn all the jobs around food transformation. And so now this thing is working, and all our schools have food that is organic and locally grown. And we reduced a little bit the size of things, but we reduced the waste. And we also had a big work on the waste, because if you go to the canteens, all the children do not finish their plate. And so you can have a lot of waste. But this waste, if you are in a school, it's public money that is wasted down the drain. So it's very important that we reduce the waste, of course, that we value the waste, but also that we reduce it full stop, and also make learning for the kids, so that, yes, it's green, it's called spinach, and you are going to love it. And so I think it's very important that all through this day, I will think that the biggest challenges that we face are double. The first challenge is that I will call it ignorance. At the moment, we are all experts. We have our phone, we meet somebody, tells us somebody thing, and we can check. And we have all met people who knew more than something that we know because they had looked on the internet. It's something that is really driving all the farmers in Europe mad. They are not happy to treat in the morning. They are not happy to have to put a gas oil in their tractor, but they have no solution to do otherwise. Or, to be more precise, the solutions to do otherwise decrease their salary, so they don't want to do it. So we have a very big problem of ignorance, so that all the people from the different communities understand that the environment has is challenging us to change, but these changes need to be understood. We have with Poland a very big problem of NGTs. NGTs is a research tool. We needed to be able to deliver more quickly varieties that will resist drought or flood, or to be even more precise, that will have a maturity period more resilient with the climate change. But some countries do not want it. So it's important that we talk to everybody, all the stakeholders, to deal with this ignorance, and that we recreate links. The second subject is that we really need to take all the chain. As I was saying, when you talk about food, you need to have the farmers win money, and for me that's the biggest challenge at the moment, because for 30 years their revenue in euro has decreased, and the cost linked to a lot of things have increased. So it's not attractive. I will be even more blunt. In the United States, the average salary of a farmer is above the average salary of Americans. In Europe, the average salary of a farmer is 40% of the average salary. We will not be able to have generation renewal if we are happy with the fact that our farmers are slowly dying because we do not want to pay the right price for the food, and maybe waste less and change some habits. So it's very important that we look at all the system. The resilience is compared to the climate change, but it must be also economic, and also we must give the local communities the means to make the other infrastructural investments that they need to do. The case of the road, for instance. So it's very important that we communicate very clearly to get rid of this ignorance and misunderstandings, and also that we talk together for the resilience and with a pragmatic issue.
My sense is somebody wants to react to that within the panel, and then do you want?
I would be happy to. There's so much in there, and then I couldn't help but also think about the comments about science being at the center of it too, right? And so how bringing these issues and topics to people, to the stakeholders, or to the local level, they're closest to the people, and often the people, the farmers or the citizens or the processors, the business owners, they know the solutions, they know their barriers, and they often have ideas for how to overcome it, and they just need a door opened or some investment in funding or some a longer-term process with the researchers and with funding to be accompanied to see, okay, we have this idea, does it really work? You know, how are we going to get all of that food into the city of Paris? We think the roads and we think processing here, but if it doesn't work, then do we have also the container to pivot, to be able to learn from what research is showing us, because things are the speed at which change is happening is increasing, right? And so we get new information all the time. We get new disasters all the time that you have to react to, and cities are learning constantly. So then also to be able to take those learnings, like you said, we don't always say what the challenges are. We say we did all these wonderful things, but then to really have a hard look at what we're doing and learn from it and progress in another direction if needed. But I would absolutely agree that this enabling the activity on the local level is pretty key. We see that there's a lot of innovation happening there, and oftentimes they're in front of it. So then it's enabling that and putting systems and structures in these multi-stakeholder groups in place so that then the barriers can be addressed also at the national level, right? So you have the local level, but you have to connect it to the regional and up the chain so that it works together. And how do you do that if you don't bring the people together to talk about a concrete issue or topic or policy? So
thanks, Anna. But perhaps talking about disaster, and I'm turning towards Martin. A Eurobarometer published last week revealed that the risk that people feel the most exposed to across Europe are extreme weather events. Irene, as well as Piotr, mentioned some of them: the wildfires, the massive flooding, the severe droughts, especially in the south of Europe. But yet, it doesn't seem that there is association between people actions and climate change catastrophes in a way. So, Martin, can we work on a narrative where we turn the food system transformation like a positive story, right? So that every local actors can actually feel empowered and be an advocate for the food green transformation?
So it's a very difficult question, and there are no simple answers to difficult questions. So first, there is a light in this tunnel, because the research we've done shows very clearly that there is a peak on the interest on climate change every time, for example, an extremely hot summer appears. It appeared in Spain, in France, in Poland, in almost every country we've researched. Unfortunately, there is this shadow narrative. So whenever we see a peak in a narrative saying, well, climate change is real and we have a serious problem, there are also some people saying, oh, it's hot summer, they will be talking about climate change again. So this is how polarization works. Two things that we should consider to create a stronger link here is that, first, people always prepare focus attribution to dispersed one. It means that whenever there is a tragedy and we can say, this guy is guilty because he didn't build a dam or he, I don't know, did something wrong, we'll prefer this explanation towards the one that shows dispersed agency. So everybody is a little bit guilty, and we need to build mechanisms that allow us to say that the responsibility is dispersed, but it still means that we are responsible and to create this collective feeling of solidarity. And the second issue I would like to raise is more tricky because I strongly believe that there is a strong association between how we think about the past and how we are able to predict and think about the future. And if you take a closer look at how we teach history in textbooks, the focus attribution of responsibility, meaning, well, Napoleon did that and changed history, and then some other important king or queen or military leader did that, and it was a turning point in history, is much, much more popular than stories that, for example, there is this researcher called Václav Smil, who wrote magnificent books about history of energy. And he demonstrates how for example, small states in medieval Germany were changing their paths completely because they ran out of high-density fuel in form of oak trees. And it was not because some king or queen made some decision, not because of some battle, but because of laws of physics and our constant interaction with rivers, with plants, with animals, with forests. And my intuition would be that a very unobvious but powerful starting point in raising a new generation that will be able to take this responsibility will be to change radically the way we narrate the past and to think much more in terms of, well, this already happened many, many, many times, that we destroyed the things by over-interacting with nature, by being greedy. This is not new. This is just a new chapter in a very, very long history.
Very interesting, Martin. We always learn a lot from you. But Piotr, coming back to you. Irene also talked about Paris and the population of Paris going crazy. It is estimated that 2/3 of the global population will live in urban areas by 2050. So how can local government try to keep people in rural areas? And if you have any examples from your region, which is one of the biggest and agricultural region in Poland.
It's also a difficult question because we try to do it and we have no successful in this area. The main problem is a difference about quality of life on the villages and the countries and in the cities. I don't mean in quality. I don't mean the main important is job and the money for exist. If we don't look for the rural area as a social problem, we never find the answer for depopulation of villages. So that is the main problem. Of course, we can build schools, roads, infrastructures, everything. But if the people have no opportunities to get good job, the same value, money, like in town, they never stay. The second is how to change agriculture and farming in our regions, our countries, our villages, for more mechanisms, so to use less job. But it's not, if you want to find the workers, some good quality of fruits needs handmade. Yeah. But we know how it is hard work. Okay, we have to find them from refugees from abroad, as it was. I many years traveled to France to pick up raspberries because it was good. I have a good wages for that. Now we in Poland employ many people, refugees from Ukraine, from Belarus, from many countries. But it's not normal. We have to find an answer how to give good price and economic situation for small farms, big farms, and social security and normal life for farmers. I have a brother who is a farmer, and since 25 years he never been on the holidays, already, any one day, because he has a cows, he has a fields, every day has to work, and it's not money for pay for the workers. If we find the workers, you have to have money. So what we do, we try to change on European policy for future. Because if we talk about the projects, as you, for example, your project is very fantastic. We have to change local law, regional law. We have to have a strategy. But the most important is to have responsibility to share money from EU funds to keep really people in the village and give the opportunity for good life. So we have to share and combine many different sources of European funds, for example, EFF, RDF, also real money, and so on, also own money, and have responsibility to realize our strategy. Because if I am the governor, the people vote me or not if I make a good job. If I make wrong job, they never vote me again for my role. Democracy is it's a basic, but we need a possibility to realize our ambitions. So local and dialogue and give decision to the ground, not somewhere. That is answer for my question. For this question.
I would like to add a little bit to your very complete presentation on the key subject about the resilience of the farmers. I'm not sure, even though I am a farming, that the fact that my future as a farmer is linked to EU subsidy is something that is sexy. And in fact, as soon as you make the paperwork to get the EU money, it's not sexy anymore. It's nightmarish. So maybe we could zoom out and try to understand how come in 40 years we had this decrease. Because in the 60s, you didn't have supermarkets, and so the food was roughly the same price, but everybody was buying at the farmer, so 100% of the money was in the pocket of the farmer. Now you have the supermarket change, which means that what you buy, roughly, the farmer, he gets half. But at the same time, we have the climate change with reduced of yields, and us also, we have embarked on the Green Deal, which is normal. We have to reduce our green gas emissions. But everything, not one single piece of legislation that we have passed either on Farm to Fork or on the Green Deal, reduced the cost. They all increase the cost. And to be totally honest with you, if they had decreased the cost, it's a long time that the farmers would have embarked on these practices by themselves. So we need to bring new money to the farmers for helping us decrease the green gas emission. For instance, in the United States, which is not the biggest communist country on earth, they have a big problem with the wildfires. And at the same time, they have some farmers that want to quit, a water problem. And so they have identified places where the land is not good enough to have good yields. So the farmers producing food on these lands, they will not make money. They have put these lands as priorities to develop solar energy, and the solar energy revenue goes to the farmer. But at the same time that we want solar energy, at the moment, where does the money of the solar energy go? No to the farmer, not to help the environment, to big energetic companies. So we need to change the way we change, because otherwise we will not have any more farmers.
Yes, Anna, go ahead.
We are very emotional.
It's getting emotional.
Let's try.
Yeah.
So that it's what we say that is true. Many examples. One, for example, from my region, we try to create now regional distribution center for own products. So we build the association of the farmers. They have we created the place where we give the certification about geographic, so the QR is in each product, and also certification about the quality, chemicals and so on. So this is not ecological, but in the limit of chemicals and so on's qualities certification. So we combine distribution and laboratory and association of farmers. So invest, and it started now, just now. We will see what will happen. I saw it in one region of in Germany, in Bavaria. So in Bavaria, it worked very well, but it needs money. But if we see for another aspects, for example, disasters, no rain. In my region, we have very rich soil, but what happened in the 10, 15 years past? We have not enough water. But if we try to build a dam on the Vistula River, the ecologists say no, it's not good and it's not for nature. I'm a biologist, I'm a hydrobiologist, so I try to understand two sides. And we need to discuss, because if we not discuss, we build a wall between people and we never find the progress in nature and in human. So that is very important to find one way for both sides of our discussion.
Anna, you want to intervene?
Yes. I think also, this conversation that we're having starting around a huge percentage of the population is going to be living in urban centers. People are leaving rural areas for jobs, and I think this is also a dialogue, a relationship that has opportunity for work, right, for these projects, or for these, when we talk about city regions, it doesn't have to be simply a municipality and a regional authority, but also looking at these multi-stakeholder groups or these food policy councils that are getting set up to include dialogues and projects that connect multiple villages or urban centers. And I think there's a lot of interesting examples also of municipalities already doing this in their regions, right, in terms of where are some additional markets for the farmers that do want to produce more locally or in a certain way, and where are those bigger distribution centers needed for this massive amount of food that we need. And it makes me think of the point about, we're all maybe a little bit responsible for this, and this diaspora, or this plethora of solutions that is needed, that it isn't, we need all of the food distributed here and then it goes out, right? But it's also maybe not every person is going to have a backyard garden and sell at the market, but maybe there are ways, like in Brasov, their central market, they are doing a color coding to identify how far away the products come from, so that then, so okay, it comes from my regional, I'm supporting my economy here and investing here, or it's coming from further away. And then I think it's also another Polish example where they're doing some centralization from across the country. So I think these are also really key points of investment and key dialogues and key groups to have in these food policy conversations, or when you're setting the priorities.
Martin, perhaps back to you. And what's the role of narratives in all of this? Because we have the cities, we have the local, we have the rurals with different problems. but how can we create a narrative that resonates with the local realities, with the local problems, and who can be the mass messengers, you know, to send the message to bring people along?
So there's this opticians, optometrists, guys who sell glasses. They are a very interesting research subject because one of them can go on with selling gear worth €10 per client, while the other will be on €900 per client, and it does not depend on localization. And there is this great research on what's the secret of the greatest salesman amongst them. And when we take away all the other factors like rich neighborhood, poor neighborhood, and so on and so forth, only two factors are important. First, the best of them speak less. And second, proportionally, they ask more questions. And I think this is the answer. When we think about narratives, we say, okay, let's create this narrative here in Brussels or in Warsaw or in Toruń or the Bydgoszcz regional capitals, and let's sell the product to the farmers. Because in good intentions, we want them, like the optometrists, yes, to have the best possible glasses. But it doesn't work. To create really good narratives, we need to start with listening, and asking questions. So vast research on how people think about agriculture, what they already say, and Madame Tolere mentioned that there is culture in agriculture. The interesting fact is that it was in agriculture before it was in culture.
Yes.
So yeah, the original meaning of culture was to cultivate plants and animals, and then the metaphorical meaning was, you know, to create culture. Anna, you mentioned sitting at one table as a powerful metaphor. Both examples, they show us that agriculture and food is never only about agriculture and food, that narratives in this region are especially important because this is a heart of our culture in this wide sense, and source of many metaphors and images that we use in many other places. This means that people are super sensitive about their food. If you want to replace their favorite pork chop with a vegan alternative, even if there are a lot of benefits, you will take away part of their heart, metaphorically, obviously. So this is why starting with listening, understanding this dense network of metaphors and images is the only way if we want to introduce any changes. And the last thing, it is also to some degree connected with the disasters and so on and so forth. We tend to focus on change. What needs to change? What needs to be done? While really we should be focusing much more on stability. Yeah. What do we want to keep? What do we need to do? How do we need to move quickly in order to be again in the same place that we love? To protect our culture, to protect our tradition, to protect our children, to protect our nature, neighborhood, to keep the things, not to change them. And this is how I would start.
It's a good start. I just want to check if there are any questions from the audience. Not at this stage. Giulia?
Good evening, everyone. Giulia Tarsitano from Hanover Communication. Maybe more than a question, just a consideration, and maybe there is some comments, because going back to the polarized debate at the EU level, there was a stakeholder platform, multi-stakeholder platform that just concluded. That was the strategic dialogue on the future of agriculture. And I think we are hearing recently these days that maybe Copa Cogeca, that is the representative of farmers, might step back on this agreement because received negative feedbacks from farmers. So I guess, I don't know, maybe Madame Tolere followed, just do you have an opinion of what was the issue there in terms of communication with the farmers, and why is this happening? And maybe on the narrative, also I'm thinking like obviously, I mean, science shouldn't be the common ground through which we solve polarization. So how can we use the science? Can we make sure that science and data make it through the narrative in a positive way for citizens? Thank you.
So the problem is that we have had a lot of climatic disaster this year, and they have a very big impact on the yields and also on the revenue. And farmers in Europe, they have the chance to have the CAP, but they have also the chance to have an insurance system that follows by the rule the World Trade Organization, which means that we are the only farmers in the world that each year when you have a catastrophe, you are not reimbursed on the value of your crop, but on an average of 5 years. And so as we have disasters each year, now they are the insurance money is as if you have a car accident and the insurance give you the money to buy a broken car. So we have a very, very serious issue on that. And in Europe, we do it like that. In Canada, they don't do it like that. In the US, they don't do it like that. And you know what? They changed. They changed like 10 years ago because they started to have these big wildfires. So we need to keep some things, but we need to listen to the farmers because this thing about the insurance system, like it's 20 years, I've talked 5 years about it, and nothing is changed because it's the trade that is negotiated, it's a World Trade Organization, it's difficult. No, if we do exactly like the United States or Canada, it's very easy to do it. So I think it's very important to understand the dire straits in which our farmers are, really. And I've never seen that. I mean, we have done a lot of policy for the environment, but they have gotten out of hand. We have the wolf issue. I mean, I saw men 2 meters high crying in my office because suddenly, because when you have a wolf that attacks you back, you lose some sheep, but you have all the pregnant sheep that abort, and you love your sheep. So you have to find, like your dog, if you have a few dogs, you have to go and find the cadaver and all that. So we really must listen to the farmers and deliver on the things that are due, the things that we said we would do, like fiber for everybody in Europe, because now everything is on the computer. But in some rural places, it's still not working. So to do your CAP declaration, you need to go to the city with your computer. So, and I'm not talking about the complexity of the CAP declaration. So I'm very happy that I was very vocal to get something called droit à l'erreur in the CAP, which means that if it doesn't work, they can still get... I do not see one type of job in Europe that has this negative narrative on its head every day. We need to change it because we want to have farmers. It's our landscape, it's our culture. Without them, we don't eat. We have the best resilient farmers in Europe. So, yes, I am the advocate of the farmers today. No, but because the thing that is happening because of these big disasters, we are really on the verge of a total system collapsing.
Thanks, Irene. We can really hear your passion and your frustration at the same time, if you allow me. But perhaps, Anna, bringing you back here in the picture. Just reading from the 5th edition of the annual report on regions and cities. So regions and cities are responsible for implementing 70% of climate mitigation and 90% of climate adaptation policy. For every 10 euros spent on environmental policies, 8 are spent locally. So from your perspective, of course, with your also experience with the cities, what do you think are the best ingredients to work on a policy for effective food system transformation?
Yeah, thank you. And I consider myself a rural urbanist, so this is, you know, it all fits together, right? And we talk about these polarized narratives, or we talk about the narratives about farming versus nature, right? Somehow we have to have a narrative or a thread that fits it all. Cities are facing huge challenges from land use, right? They're looking at more people, so then how do we expand? But we don't want to expand into our food production areas or for nature conservation reasons. Or so then how do we bring more nature into the city, more food into the city, food production, food processing, food pathways? You know, it's polarized conversations, but the solutions have to be more generous with each other, because we need each other, right? You need both. From the perspective of, you know, ingredients for policy, I think it's back to the heart of what we're talking about today really is this listening, I think, is a good starting point to the farmers, but also to the landowners, to the politicians, to the people who are looking for access to food, whether they're in a metropolitan area or whether they're in a rural area. People face food security issues, not just from the quality, not just from the quantity, but from the quality as well, and it's a health issue, right? Like, food is a health issue. If we want a bright future for Europe or for Canada or for the US for that matter, we need people who can focus in school, who have the proper nutrition. We need people to understand where food comes from, that it's just not in a box from a grocery store, that there's people behind it. And so really, I think this a key point in terms of where food comes into the policy discussion is important. It comes in through the climate angle for sure. It comes in through like the greening and nature spaces for sure, and it also has to come in through the health spaces for sure. So when we talk about food policy, food has to be interwoven into many of them, or one food policy or the food strategies also have to include these axes out to the other topical areas and other policies. And I think going beyond kind of pilot projects in a city or one-off investments, or looking at what are some public-private partnership opportunities that can work to support this work as well, so that we're removing the barriers to get the projects done that the people on the ground, as was said, want to have happen. I think that's the core of it.
It's interesting. Piotr, do you feel like intervening?
I mean that most important is to find the bridge between consumers and farmers, producers of food. And what Marcin said about the cultural role of agriculture, that is the beginning of our identity. So if we will understand in cities and big towns our roots and culture roots, maybe we change our mentality and we will be involved to promote our local food products. So we will every day when we eat a breakfast and lunch, we will create the culture to understand the role of food. It's not only to have power, good condition, and to care about our health. You have to understand that what we eat, we are. So also in our mentality, in our identity, in culture. So dialogue in this way will be easier. So without consumers, we never build normal situation, because to pay more for bread is a question about for what we pay. If we pay for our identity, our culture, our relationships, it will be easier, like to go to opera, okay? Pay more, because agriculture needs more money. The farmers need more money. If we will ask about the big companies, they will money, but cheaper buy, and with small crop, but many thousand tons, to have a big crop. That is a problem, and you have to understand that food, good quality from our local, so after we can talk about environment, every aspect of, but we have to understand it need our, we have to change our consumer search. Yeah. That is general opinion, of course, about our discussion.
And a very central one as well. I've been told from the production side that we have the results of the questions ready. Perhaps, Martin, I will let you interpret it and give a narrative about it.
We also have a question, I believe.
Ah, yes, of course, that's
More
great.
of them. Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. Who goes first? Lady first.
Many thanks. Just two brief considerations. I completely agree that the public administration should be a strong driver to the market, but not only in terms of subsidies, public subsidies, and we cannot blame customers if they cannot afford good quality food. So probably the most impactful action that we could do about food has nothing to do with farmers, but it is introducing a minimum salary all across Europe. So this, for example, would allow people to pay the right price for the food and allow anyone to afford to buy sustainable and healthy food. The second consideration is that I see that there is a problem with the costs of environmental friendly measures, but there is a very simple action we can do that both reduces costs and CO2 emissions, which is the reduction of animal products. Animal-based products. Thank you.
Can you please just quickly state your name and association?
Sorry. I'm Giulia Mazzolino. I'm a Climate Pact ambassador and a councillor in my region.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Who was next with a question? Yes. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you for the possibility to make a question, and thank you for the panelists. It was very interesting. I'm Zeno Oberkofler. I'm a local councillor from South Tyrol in Italy, and we have a lot of farmers, and agriculture plays a very important role in our region. And we feel a lot the impacts of climate change on agriculture. And it's an issue, and I would have a question on the theme of narratives. And Mr. Rapnoprikovsky, sorry for the name, he talked that when we are faced with, when you have to deal with extreme weather events, like the comparison of climate change and so on is it's more likely to understand and to try to understand the rule, like the impacts of climate change on our lives. But I feel that when we talk about climate change in these moments, people that are like standing in the dirt, dealing with the consequences of climate change in this moment, and we talk about like graphs about global temperature rising and its effects on them, like it feels like there is a gap between, and it's very difficult when we like in this situation, when they're in this difficult situation, we talk about climate change. How can we like fill this gap, and how can we take serious the problems that are dealing right now, but also talk about the origins of the problems they have to deal with. Yeah, it was a bit confusing, but I think you understood what I meant.
Martin, please.
If I may refer also very quickly to the question of reducing meat consumption, which is a very well scientifically proven way to reduce our CO2 emission indeed. The huge challenge here is that it is usually framed as taking something away. So we will reduce meat consumption, we will take your pork chop. Probably the good starting point again would be what we need is to expand our menu to include much more vegetarian products. By the way, which, at least for Poland, will be coming back to roots. Almost 90% of our ancestors were peasants, and their diet happened to be almost vegetarian because meat was not an affordable option for them. So being a huge Polish patriot, I think that this is something we need to rediscover. As for preaching climate change to people who have their houses flooded, this is probably not the best idea. This is rather something we already see existing in the public debate. There are huge peaks, spikes of interest in climate change whenever a catastrophe appears, which demonstrates that public already senses the link here. But definitely saying to people who just survived a disaster or 5 years in a row are experiencing a kind of disaster, saying to them that, we told you, you should have been smarter earlier, it's not a good idea. And again, creating a inclusive communication here, it's definitely a challenge.
Very shortly, Ren, because
very short. We need also to change to understand that science helps us. For instance, in Australia, they have an algae that the cow, they eat it and they reduce their methane gas emission by 80%, which means that at the moment when we are speaking, in Australia, the government says that they will reach the target of greenhouse gas emissions with their cattle. But instead of eating meat, we can eat also vegetarian things, but also cattle, they graze and they protect us against the natural catastrophes. And in the south of France, the fact that we have no more sheep have made us more fragile toward fires. In California, they had sheep, and then they are no more is eating mutton anymore, and so they stopped with the sheep. The fires, the pine forests are not maintained. So and it's a European policy that killed it because we were supposed to put have certain practices. So we need to deliver, to understand each other and what the science finds, and if are good opportunities, develop them.
Good. Evidence-based policies, just summarizing.
Maybe,
yes?
One sentence for no animals. That is maybe the future, but for this moment we still know that we need animals for normal agriculture, because without animals we have no organic materials, and our soil is poorer and poorer, and absorptions of gas is very important. So if we forget to make richest by animals organic waste our soil, finally we will use more chemicals, more waters, finally more gas, carbons, and so on. So it's very important to talk, like you said, with the scientists and know really what is the results of our decision.
It's good. There is no one-size-fits-all. It's an holistic contribution. So the results of the questions are ready. We can actually show them, right? Coming up. Voila. Martin, this is food for you. So do you think the transformation of the food system is creating polarized position? I guess we have a majority here of yes.
We have a majority here that voted yes. Obviously, it would be even more interesting if we've done two tests, one before the debate and one after the debate. We would actually see the impact of the debate. But
it's a lesson learned.
As we can see, the audience generally believes that the transformation of the food systems is creating polarized position. No polarization here, almost.
The next one.
A local multi-stakeholder platform improve coordination and consensus in the shift towards sustainable food systems. Everybody believes that this is true, which is suspicious. It shouldn't be zero, never, in science. So we fully agree here, although if we probably ask another question, okay, so what do you mean by a local multi-stakeholder platform? That will be 33 entirely different answers. Next slide, please. In 3 words, define the cause of agri-food polarization. And, whoa, this is exactly what we expected. So there are 33 different answers here. You know, the program works that it basically puts same answers together. So if a lot of people voted for one thing, we would have huge one answer in the middle and smaller in the other places. Here we can see really that everybody thinks something different.
Yeah. Any words that...
It's really interesting. Like, for example, culture wars or bureaucracy. We can see that there are a lot of factors, and my guess would be that all of these answers are 100% correct. So the polarization is a super simple phenomenon that shows us a binary world of good and evil, but the roots of polarization are always extremely complex. And by the way, we have a very good research. That's the last experiment I'm talking about today, sorry. We have a very good research showing that there is one effective way of combating polarization. When we put 2 polarized people together in one room and we give each of them single-side briefing, they will get more polarized. If we put them together and we give them double-sided briefing, so some arguments for their position and some against their position, you know what happens? They will be even more polarized. What works surprisingly is if we give them multi-sided briefing. So we'll say there is no pro-gun and anti-gun, this was American research, or pro-life, pro-choice. There are actually 10 different positions. People who care about traditional values and people who care about security and so on and so forth. And it's same with agriculture. Even if we just open the topic of animal production, we can see that there is no yes and no, but people who are for soil fertility, for cultural values, for taste, people who are for CO2 emission, and people who are against animal cruelty. And there are 12 different positions, and actually, when we put people together and say that there are many different factors, they tend to magically depolarize. And this is one very important thing we could do, and this could be a very good starting point. When people see that the cause of polarization is super complex and would see this kind of map, they would tend to get depolarized automatically. It's not a miracle system to save the world, but again, a good starting point.
Thanks a lot. That's great. I think we are running out of time. So I would just please, in 30 seconds each, what would think would be the best action or the urgent action that we need to get people together and work this through? I will start with Anna.
Like one thing that they can do.
Yes, that we can all do.
That we can all do. Well, shameless promotion. No, we have a healthy school meals petition, and there's currently, I forget his year, 93,000 signatures, and this is really about getting healthy meals in schools. And if we talk about what are one of the depolarizing topics in the areas that we can all agree on, I think is that we need healthy people, right? I think that we need healthy farmers, we need healthy consumers, we need people who can focus and who are going to go up and lead Europe and have these nuanced conversations. And if you can consider signing the health, okay, that was more than 30 seconds. I saw your finger go up.
Without water, there is no food. So I think that we need to have urgent action at the EU level to make sure that we use potable water for human consumption, and for all the needs that do not need potable water, we keep it where it is and we reuse the water. In Singapore, they reuse it 25 times, and that way we will put less pressure and and be more resilient to horrible drought that we had.
Good point. Yeah.
I have a dream that our children in future will know from where come milk and bread. And second dream is that the people understand that farming is not against to nature, it's a friend, because since centuries agriculture farmers care about collaboration, coexisting with the nature. And I hope that when we have a dinner everywhere where we eat, we will think about the people who produce it on the farm, and they care also about our culture issues and roots.
Martin?
Now I will repeat it again. Listen to the people, especially to the people with whom we disagree, to see how complex reality is, because it's never black and white.
Thank you. So we would like this event to be just actually a small step, a break towards a continued dialogue. As I said before, like to create a multi-stakeholder platform where people can just convene, share opportunities, share challenges. So if you feel that the issues today have been close to your heart, to your business, or whatever interest, please reach out. This is the general email address of European Food Forum, which we are all member of. Thanks a lot to the panelists. Thanks a lot from the Committee of Regions for this interesting debate. Thanks a lot to the audience. We can all go home and have a drink. And so a round of applause to everybody.